All right, thanks, Katie. All right, guys, welcome and thanks again for joining this session. We have a very important topic to discuss today, and it's about reducing the cloud cost. So the cost is an important design pillar when you are building and architecting your networks inside the cloud, right? So we'll look at different ways, tips, and techniques, and the best practices that are being adopted by hundreds of our customers to reduce the overall cost. So why cloud is so expensive? So I have actually divided this into three different buckets. So the number one is the network architecture. You guys have been in the industry for so long, you know how important it is to build your network with the proper architecture. And when I talk to my customers, I see that they don't follow the network architecture recipe. What they see from cloud is just an easy button. They're gonna click on it and boom, everything is just deployed automatically, consumed automatically, and delivered based on the enterprise requirement. And that's not the case, right? Oftentimes what I see that when I talk to my customers or enterprises, they tell me that, hey, this is very expensive because the data transfer is very expensive. So are there any ways where we can actually optimize the data transfer? Then I also noticed that especially when a customer is moving from on-premise into the cloud, or if they're connecting their branches into the cloud, they actually follow the wrong hybrid connectivity approaches. What do I mean by that? I have seen customers where they actually leverage the on-premise firewall for all the cloud workload. So they will send all the traffic from their cloud into the on-prem firewall and then get it inspected, and then it will just go back into the cloud, like creating this hairpin, right? So that's expensive. You're paying for the data transfer charges, you're paying for the management and overall operations of this entire architecture. So that's another issue. Then sometimes I also see, and this is improving, is that customers, when they deploy these next generation firewalls into the cloud, they start deploying it in each and every VPC or VNet. That's totally wrong approach, because you're increasing your operational overhead. It's an overhead. It's a nightmare to actually manage this type of environment where you have the next generation firewall sitting in each and every VPC. And then last but not the least is that these enterprises, they don't think about the architecture. They create snowflakes. They create these unicorns where even in the single cloud, they don't follow the architecture, and they end up creating something which is totally disjointed and fractured. So they don't really follow the multi-cloud approach, and their architecture or their networks, I should say, are not multi-cloud ready. The second issue I see for the cloud, where the cloud is seen as very expensive, is because of all the security breaches. So obviously, cloud is new for a lot of IT architects, and when they're deploying it, they're not following the best practices, and they end up creating issues for themselves, and it causes the security breaches. So you would hear or you will see security breaches related to cloud in news pretty much every day, right? So they basically create a very complex design, and they actually end up creating a lot of mess, to be honest, for themselves and for their teams. So basically, what you need to do, you need to follow a very simple recipe that is being provided by Aviatrix. Because if you ask me, the best design, the best architecture is the simple design. Don't create these complexities for yourself. And we'll actually help you in this session. How do you actually eliminate those type of complexities? And then I see people, they come in with the on-premise mindset, where they try to implement things in the cloud with the on-prem mentality, where which is pretty much perimeter firewall. I will protect my perimeter and everything is good. That's not the case in the cloud, because if you look at the cloud, the internet is sitting next to your applications, right? So when you log into AWS console, you click on the VPC, you see the VPC, the IGW is there. Same case in Azure. In the VNet, the applications or the virtual machines, they have by default access to internet, right? So you need to change this mentality. Then I also noticed that people that try to bolt on security, they don't think of security as being part of the fabric, as part of the data plane. So it's very important to remember that, because these are the places where these breaches are coming from. And then there are cases where enterprises, they try to follow do it yourself approach, right? I'll do it myself. I'll create the script, I do the automation, and life is good. That's not the case, because these scripts, these automation scripts are static. they're not providing any feedback back into a unified system or a control plane where the control plane can actually take actions and provide some remediation automatically, like in a self-healing method, right? So that's very important to remember. And the last but not the least is the third pillar where I see this cloud perceived to be very expensive is because of the operations, right? Because if you look at pillar number one or the bucket number one, bucket number two, and if you don't follow the best practices, if you create a complex design, obviously it's going to be very difficult for you to manage, and it will take a lot of time. And time is also money, right? So there is a cost to run these operations. So you end up dealing with a lot of black boxes where you cannot peek inside, you cannot see the route table, you cannot change the BGP configuration, for example. There is no visibility into exactly how your packets are flowing from one place to another place. So your mean time to resolutions are very high. You're dependent on other services and teams to basically get very simple things done. For example, ping or trace route, right? So there is a lack of troubleshooting options in the CSP world, which you need to be aware of. And then the logs are actually very costly, right? So when you're shipping those logs, obviously there is the data processing charges that is being incurred by these CSP. So you need to also think about all those operational aspects and take it into consideration to reduce the overall cost. Now, this is just one example. I have a number of examples, but this will actually give you a very clear clue of what I just spoke about. So here there is a deployment of next generation firewall in GCP, and this is taken from the GCP website. You will notice that in this design, there is a VM series sitting in the middle, and it has different NICs connected to different VPCs, right? So in GCP, when you deploy a virtual machine, every single NIC has to be connected to a unique VPC, which is not the case in AWS. In AWS, when you deploy EC2 instance, if it has multiple NICs, those NICs are a part of the same VPC. So that's very different from AWS, right? And then even if you look at the VM series or the virtual machines in GCP, they can only support eight NIC in total, max 8 NICs. So that means you can connect 7 VPCs for your workloads and 1 for the management here in this case, right? So there are a lot of differences, there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of limitations that you need to be aware of. And that's why when you deploy it, let's say in another cloud, which is AWS, it is completely inconsistent. It's not repeatable because it's not following any architecture. So in AWS, it's going to be totally different. And obviously, if you have learned GCP, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually do it in AWS. It will increase the time, increase the cost, and everything. Okay, so now hopefully you get the idea, you know the problem statement. Now let's talk about how do I actually save the cost of this cloud deployment. So the first thing is to adopt the next generation cloud network architecture, which can actually provide you security, visibility, and control. And this is exactly why we have Aviatrix to help you guys, because we see it day in, day out. We work with hundreds of enterprise customers. We do it every day, right? So if you look at our architecture approach, it starts from the controller. Okay, so that's like the brain of the solution. The controller is the EC2 instance or a virtual machine that you can deploy from CSP Marketplace. Right, so you log into Marketplace console in AWS, search Aviatrix, you'll find the controller, you can deploy it. Now this controller, once it is deployed, it will manage the entire architecture, entire operations for your cloud networking and security needs. So what's gonna do is actually talks to the cloud native APIs, cloud native services, like the TGWs, the route table, the IGWs, the VGWs, in GCP, for example, the cloud router, the cloud VPN and whatnot, and it will actually program and automate and orchestrate those constructs based on your enterprise requirement. But let's say if you need some advanced networking and security services, then we're gonna build the network, a proper architecture using Aviatrix gateways, and that's gonna provide you the necessary provide you the necessary information or the meaningful output based on your enterprise requirement, right? So we interact with all these third-party CSPs, obviously, And third-party vendors, we can control and manage those elements as well. How does it look like when you actually implement it for a customer? Obviously, this is a very complex diagram where this specific enterprise is present in multiple CSPs in AWS, in Azure, and in GCP. Your environment could be different. Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of flexibilities available as part of this architecture, but the fundamental idea here is that we will build a repeatable enterprise-grade hub and spoke architecture. So what you see here on the left-hand side is the transit VPC in AWS, where we have our transit gateways deployed. And then you see the next generation firewall, like Palo Alto VM series, sitting in a centralized location. And then they're connected to the VPCs. These are the spoke VPCs where you have your actual applications deployed. And then we will build this connectivity. And by the way, this is happening automatically, right? So you only defining your intent in the controller here through UI or through Terraform. And then we will realize it. We'll make it happen for you. So when you see this complex architecture, this is all driven from the UI or from the Terraform, right? It's all automated. So we build this hub and spoke architecture. We build the policy, and then based on the policy, we can insert these next generation firewall into your flows. And then we also have integration and options to connect to your on-premise resources, like your data centers, your branches, your SD-WAN branches, your users, if they're coming from the on-premise side or in the cloud, right? So that's how we actually build a network, an architecture in the cloud, and then we copy, paste, and repeat. So you'll notice it's the same architecture in Azure. It's the same architecture in GCP. So that's the consistency I'm talking about. That's the cost saving. This is where the cost saving is coming from, right? By following the same architecture. Now you don't have to learn Azure or GCP because it's the same nomenclature, same jargon, same look and feel. So you don't have to worry about all the underneath plumbing, the route programming, dynamic routing, and whatnot. Okay, so that's the architecture piece. Now, obviously, I'm not just telling you from some paper knowledge or bookish knowledge. This is exactly what we have done for a number of enterprises, and you can see some logos here. We are helping a lot of enterprise customers in all different verticals, brownfield scenarios, greenfield scenarios, you name it. Okay, so what our enterprise customers are telling us, basically they are telling us they're getting the value from this platform that is actually enabling them to reduce the cost. With this unified architecture, design and operations, we are providing them increased visibility and control for the workloads they have deployed. We are accelerating the migration and the onboarding of partners and different tenants and line of businesses so they can actually grow their business. They can provide the innovation to their end customers. And we are doing this while we are bridging this skill gap or that is present today in the cloud world. And that's why our enterprises are getting the value out of this platform. Now I'll move on to the second bucket of this cost saving, which is about designing and deploying your cloud network with the proper architecture in mind, right? So let's take a look. So we already touched upon this, but this is very important because when you start securing your applications, normally you think that next generation firewall is the answer for all my questions, which is, by the way, is not the case because there are other ways to actually provide this security, which is done in a layered fashion. And then it actually increases and enhances the security posture of your entire deployment. But let's focus on this centralized next generation firewall. So what we recommend to our customers that you don't need to deploy these firewalls in each and every VPCs and VNet, right? While doing so, you can actually do some cost saving. You can realize some cost saving there by reducing the number of EC2 instances, the cost of the license, the charges that you need to pay for the data to be transferred from one place to another place. So instead of doing all that, you basically deploy it in a centralized location. You can call it security DMZ or transit VPC. This is where your transit gateways are. It is also connected to the on-premise systems and resources like data center branches. And then you have your workloads defined here in the spoke VPCs, right? So, and then what you do, basically you write the policy. You mention that this VPC, for example, is my crown jewel application VPC, and I want it to be protected by next generation firewall. So when you create this intent, the policy, we will realize it. If you don't use our platform, what you end up doing is basically sending all the traffic from everywhere to this next generation firewall, which is obviously very costly, right? So yeah, if you don't need to, then don't do that, because you can use some other mechanisms in other places to secure your workload, right? And then when you deploy these VM series firewalls, they are active. There is no active standby, right? So that's another cost saving option or technique we have as part of the architecture. You can scale up, scale out, there are a number of different ways to skin this cat. And then whatever you are seeing here is all done with the maximum performance and throughput, because you're not using IPsec, which actually reduces the throughput in the cloud. Because if you use IPsec to build these tunnels between your workload or VPCs directly to VM series, you're limited to 1.25 GB throughput. But with our solution, you have maximum throughput available for your VM series. And then there is no like source NAT that is being done here, so you have full visibility into your network. Now you can see I'm just copy pasting and repeating it in Azure, right? So this is how simple it is. And this is a centralized design model or design I presented here, but obviously there are a number of different ways to implement this. There are some variations you can create or based on your business requirement. And some design patterns are available on this YouTube link here. And you can also send us email at info@aviatrix.com, and we can actually help you based on your unique requirements. So let's move on to the next cost saving technique. So I'm pretty sure you guys are using the NAT gateway or to connect to external entities, right? But you have to remember that when you are deploying the NAT gateways, you have to pay the cost of this NAT gateway and also data processing charges, right? So that's very important to remember. Now, these NAT gateways, they could easily be replaced by this Aviatrix egress FQDN gateways. So the egress FQDN gateway, Aviatrix egress FQDN gateway can provide you the NAT capabilities, but can also go one step further by restricting the traffic going towards the internet using the fully qualified domain names. So there is a policy that you can create, and you can say that this policy is zero trust policy, where I would only allow my EC2 instances or virtual machines to go to, let's say, github.com or ubuntu.com, but nothing else, right? And then you can realize this policy through the controller, through the automation. So basically, you are getting a lot of security benefits with this type of approach instead of using the NAT gateway, where the NAT gateway, you can write the rule, obviously, but it's very static rule. There is no policy mechanism. Those are individual discrete entities you need to manage. And also you cannot create rich rules like we provide as part of the egress FQDN. Okay, so now move on to another feature we have as part of the platform, which is called the network segmentation. Okay, so why do you need network segmentation? So when you deploy these workloads in your cloud, in single cloud or in multiple clouds, doesn't really matter. You need to provide proper air gapping, proper segmentation between the workloads so that you can enhance the security posture and reduce those breaches. So that's the idea, right? So for that, we have created this feature called network segmentation, which allows you to create zero trust policies to create various segments in your cloud network so that you can reduce the unwanted traffic. And also at the end, the next generation firewall cost, right? So if I see this diagram here, you will see there are some green VPCs and then there are some blue VPCs. So these are my network segments. They could be prod, dev, or could be line of business, like for example, HR or engineering or finance, right? And then I create a policy saying, you know what, this is my blue segment, this is my green segment. And as a policy, I don't want them to talk to each other. So you create this intent, and then we will realize it for you automatically. So all the route programming, route propagation, dynamic route propagation is all done automatically by the controller. And the beauty is that you can actually extend these segments to the on-premise systems and servers as well. So you can define this data center as a green segment where this branch maybe is a blue segment, and you can say that this screen cannot talk to branch. So we can actually extend it. So you can see this is all global, consistent, it is repeatable, it is applicable in single cloud or multiple clouds or multiple regions, right? And like I said, it is extended to your on-premise resources as well. Now we can go one step further and provide more granular segments called microsegments. So what you can do now, you can also club your virtual machines, your EC2 instances, or your applications based on some rich criteria. For example, tags or VM or EC2 attributes, right? So you can actually create your app domain, application domains based on the tags. Tags is very popular, so we'll take tag as an example here. So here I have created a blue, green, and orange tag for my different workloads. I call it app domain. Those are the application domains. And I can now create a microsegmentation policy saying, you know what, the blue cannot talk to green, but blue can actually talk to orange, for example. Right? And then this is also available in single cloud or multiple clouds or multiple regions, right? So now you have more control over your network. You have complete visibility into what those applications are that are part of that app domain and how they're actually connecting or talking to the other domains. And the beauty is that, let's say if you have an application that is born tomorrow, but it has a tag blue attached to it, it will automatically become part of this policy. So you don't have to touch or do anything. That's really powerful, right? So with this zero trust policy driven microsegmentation approach, we can increase the security posture, we can reduce the security breaches, and obviously we are also cutting the unnecessary traffic that is leaving from these VPCs and going to this centralized next generation firewall, and then you are doing inspection or blocking here. You already paid for this traffic, right? So why should you do that? If you want to save the cost, use this type of feature, either network segmentation or microsegmentation, and block the traffic right at the source so that you're not paying the cost for the data transfer and also the cost that you would pay to process this at the next generation firewall level. Your next generation firewall should be there. I'm not saying you remove it. No, it should be there, but it should do the job that is is given to it, right? Because it can do and protect and inspect your traffic. You can reduce the pressure on your firewall so that it can actually perform other tasks meaningfully. I'm hoping that it's making sense to you guys. All right. So, okay. Now let's move on to another important feature that we have part of this platform, which is called the Threat IQ. Okay? So Threat IQ, what it does basically, it can detect the threat, a malicious bad IPs that are trying to attack your applications. Right? So obviously there are bad actors sitting out there. They're very sophisticated. They're enhancing their game. They're trying different ways to attack your applications. So how do you actually get the prevention from those type of attacks? So there is a notion of detecting those threats, right? So you detect those threats, that's number one. But then there is another layer where you need to automatically remediate those threats or stop that threat to actually coming into your network. And this is exactly why we have the Threat Guard feature as part of this platform, which allows our customers to quickly identify those threats so they get alerted about those threats. But not only that, as soon as this threat comes in, we will automatically block it from penetrating into your network, close to where it actually came from. It's very important. And the threat could be coming from the internet. It could also be coming from your on-premise systems, like your data center or your SD-WAN branches, right? So it doesn't really matter. The architecture is there to cater and provide the threat prevention in all those scenarios. Green field, brown field, doesn't really matter, right? Okay. So now you will see that, okay, we detected the threat. Now we have, stopped this threat from penetrating into other places. And we'll visually show you on the UI exactly where those threats are. There is a geo map available where you can see that. You can click on the thread and you can get further details about the thread, and also not only thread, but exactly where it is happening in your network. So we'll also provide you this context where this is coming from. And if let's say if this IP address is cleaned tomorrow or after a week, we will automatically clean it in our database as well, saying, you know what, this is now a proper clean IP. Now it's allowed, so we will automatically remove the rules or the firewall rules in our gateway to allow that traffic in future. This works seamlessly across the board in all the clouds, right? So, for example, in AWS, there is a similar service called AWS Guard Duty. So the Guard Duty can also detect those threats. Obviously, there is a cost to it, but that's it. It's not going to stop those threats. It's going to only alert you that, yes, this is the threat I saw. Do something about it, right? But it's only in AWS. What if you're present in multiple clouds? You go into Azure, there could be a different service for that. In GCP, could be different service to stop that threat, right? So now you kind of lost. Like, what should I do now? You need to pick a feature like this, which is part of the platform, which is part of the data plane. You don't have to do anything. It's happening automatically for you. You don't have to configure it, and it's part of the same licensing umbrella. It's part of the system. It's part of the fabric, right? So that's the cost saving I'm talking about. Right? Instead of using those native services, you can leverage this, and then you have a significant cost reduction or optimization for your deployment. All right, so now let's talk about this important feature, which is being asked by all the enterprises. So we all know that data locality, geofencing, or GDPR, these are important requirements for any network that you deploy today, right? There are regulations, there are audit controls where they mandate a country or a region to say that this data can only be processed in XYZ region, right? So how do you actually do that? If you try to do it manually, it's impossible in my opinion, right? But what we have provided this as part of this platform again, where you can simply go to the UI, Aviatrix UI, and you can say that I don't want any traffic to come from this XYZ country. And this is just a toggle button, right? And we also show you, like, if we observe the IPs from a specific region, we will also show you where these IPs are coming from, right? So it's a very powerful feature, very easy to implement, and there is um, no need to learn any cloud for this feature to implement, right? It's across the board, across multiple regions, across multiple clouds. It's the same architecture, same design that actually follows across the board. All right, so we discussed about the architecture, we discussed about the design and deploy and different techniques to reduce the overall cloud cost and reduce those breaches, reduce the operational overhead, which is obviously, like I said before, is another cost to run the business. Now let's talk about the operations in more detail, right? So this is where I'm gonna show you a slide here and we'll take you into my Aviatrix demo. So what we are trying to do here, or what we have done for the enterprises, is that we have provided a single pane of glass to run and manage the operations for your cloud networks. We have provided the advanced observability and troubleshooting options to remove those blind spots and reduce your MTTR, because when you have a pressure situation, when something is broken and something is down, what you want to do, you basically turn towards your operations team and say, can you give me insight into why this breach happened? And I want you to do it very quickly, because if I don't solve this problem, the time it takes to remediate this issue is the cost I'm paying, right? Because your business is down, so you're losing the business. So the sooner you troubleshoot and provide a solution, the better it is, right? You're saving some cost. So that's what you need to remember, very important. And also when you use this platform, unlike other CSPs and services, we don't cost for this flow analysis. In some CSPs, for example, in GCP, I have seen that if you want to run a test between a source and destination virtual machine, you have to pay for each and every query. Right? I don't know if you know that or not, but yes, that's the case. So that's the cost, right? So we save that cost by providing these options or these troubleshooting tools part of the platform. Okay, so yeah, number of different options. We have packet capture, interface status. We'll show you the graph. We show you the topology, the real context, because when you deploy this network through the AWS CLI or AWS UI, there is no visualization there, right? So we'll actually give you this visualization and complete insight into the flows that are happening in and out of your network, coming from on-prem, going towards the internet, coming from the internet, you name it. Okay, so as part of this, operational discussion, day-to-ops discussion, there is an important feature I want to talk about, which will definitely help you reduce the overall cost of running this business or running the network. It's called the network behavior analytics. Okay, so what do we do here? So think of it, a feature where, let's say, you're using your credit card today here in California, right? Physically, you're present at a gas station, you use your card, and at the same time, your card is being used somewhere else in the world. So that's not possible. Physically, two people cannot be, in different places, right? So then you get a call or a text from your credit card provider saying, something is wrong, right? And then, you want to accept those charges or you want to deny those charges. So similar idea implemented here for the network with our machine learning techniques and algorithms, where we actually detect those anomalies in the network. So if there is an anomaly in the network, we'll detect it and we're gonna tell you that there is some abnormal behavior happening in your network. There is some anomaly coming from outside or maybe happening from inside, but this is not the normal. So the way we do it, we create the baseline of your network, right? We know exactly what this baseline is. And if there is a deviation from the baseline, we can alert you, warn you so that you can take action. And you can change this deviation also. There is a medium, high, and low sensitivity level, which you can define, and you can create the policy, and then we will act upon based on what you configured. Okay, so let's take a look at the Copilot demo, and let's recap everything that we discussed, right? So we discussed the architecture, importance of architecture, design and deploy, and the day-to-day operations to save the cost of your overall deployment. Now I'm logged into my Aviatrix UI console, and the first thing that you see is the dashboard. So this will show you the inventory of everything that you have deployed in your cloud network, including the gateways, the instances. If you have on-premise connections, like BGP connections, you name it, you will see this, right? And then we will also show you the nice looking view into this world where you can see the threats that are happening or coming over last 4 hours, sorry. And then the location where you are operating in. You will also see different metrics about the number of accounts you have in the cloud, your gateways, your workloads are sitting in different regions. So we will, give you this nice pie chart showcasing exactly where those are. We'll provide you insight into your traffic, like how your traffic is basically happening or entering into a network or leaving from your network, right? So we'll also show you that. And then we have something called the Flow IQ, which actually shows you the flows in your network, right? So let me go to my flow. This is the traffic I was talking about. And then when you look at the traffic, there are, again, multiple options to slice and dice this data. So we will also show you all that. So let me log into my controller again, and then I'm going to launch another tab for my Copilot. Yeah, so this is the Copilot that I was showing you before. So we discussed this topology, right? So the topology is automatically built as you build your network, and you can actually drill down into deeper into the weeds You can, for example, click on this gateway. You can click the diagnostic option here. You can do ping, trace route, trace path. You can test the connectivity right from this UI. You can see the active sessions happening in the network. And this is exactly what I was talking about when I mentioned you that the CSP services are black boxes. They don't provide you this level of visibility that we are providing with our solution. Packet capture is a very famous and popular tool we have as part of this platform. And then there are a number of different options, right, to reduce the time it takes for you to solve a problem. Then we'll also show you the latency for different applications, between different applications, so that if a stakeholder is coming to you and asking about, my application is slow, you can actually provide them this evidential data. You can also replay the topology, which is also, by the way, is a huge cost-saving technique in my opinion, because you can go back in time and you can see exactly what the network was 2 days ago and what changed in between. And if you want to roll back those changes, you can quickly do that, right? Instead of figuring out like who made that change and why it happened, where it happened, we show you exactly the context of these changes. So you can click on this circle and you can see exactly where that change was, and you can quickly, fix the problem, right? The flows are very important, right? The flows information, getting to know more about the flows and how the packet is traveling in and out of your network. Slicing and dicing it in different various ways is obviously very important. We can also show you the trend. We'll show you the geolocation of those flows, where they're coming from, and you can also go deeper into the information and get some more insight about these flows. The performance is about the overall performance of your network. If you are worried about the cost you are paying for certain instances, you want to see the performance of those instances so that you can actually quickly, identify those areas, and maybe there is a chance to reduce the instance size or decrease the instance size, right? So you can also quickly see that from the performance dashboard. Cloud routes will show you the routes from the gateway from the VPCs, VNet across the board, or if you have routes coming from on-premise, the BGP routes or a static route, doesn't really matter. And again, that actually helps you reduce the cost by reducing the time to troubleshoot an issue. Notifications, alerts, application intelligence. If you, like I mentioned before in GCP, if you want to run a query between a source and a destination virtual machine, you will be paying for that cost, but here you can actually quickly run it. We'll show you exactly how these two instances are connected. And if there's a problem in between, we'll also identify and show it to you. Security is our topic today, very important topic. We discuss a lot of things about security. We have it part of this platform. As you can see, we discuss network segmentation to save the cost. Then you have the micro segmentation, and visualization obviously is very important for you to quickly come and see how those segments are connected or not connected together. The microsegmentation view will show you the inventory of those resources, part of an app group. And then you can also create the policy to say that, these two app domains can talk to each other, but rest cannot. We discussed egress portion, egress control. So we will visualize it for you. We'll show you the top 10 URLs, how they're connected. We discussed geo-blocking, the countries that you want to block. You can quickly do it from here. Just a simple toggle button, and then we'll just stop this traffic from entering into your network. The threat IQ, threat intelligence, is what I showed you in the beginning in the overall dashboard, but you can also see it here if there are any threats coming into your network. We'll show you on this UI here. And then last but not the least, the anomaly detection, where we create the baseline, and then we will basically act based on anything that changes in your network. Okay, so let's move back to the recap portion. So yeah, so if you want to reduce the cost of your overall cloud network spend, what you need to do, you need to think about first from the architecture perspective. Your architecture should be simple, should be repeatable, right? The second thing, very important thing, is the implementation of next generation firewall. You need to look at it from layered security approach option. So you provide security close to the application. We discuss microsegmentation, network segmentation, and then you have your second layer of security, or maybe third, is the next generation firewall providing deep packet inspection for the workloads that you really want to protect. And when you implement next generation firewall or VM series with our solution, the policy allows you to inspect any type of traffic. Your traffic could be coming from internet, could be going towards the internet, from the on-prem. We cater all these different scenarios and flows and patterns, and we give you option to secure the traffic coming from different places. Agility automation is extremely important, right? It could be very costly if you don't pay attention to your automation needs. So make sure you have it as part of the your proper design plan. And what we recommend is to use the Terraform. And whatever you have seen, all the network, all the complexities that I showed you in the diagram and whatnot, can easily be simplified if you are using the automation. Because believe it or not, it's still a lot of security breaches are happening due to human errors. So you can have a proper plan in place with the automation, with the proper approval, and you can talk to us because we have helped number of enterprises. We can help you. We can actually give you the Terraform code if you want. So yeah, so you need to think of enabling the security and reducing the cost from that perspective as well. Because we believe that security, the automation has to be part of your data plane, has to be part of your data fabric. That's what we're providing as part of the solution. You must think about the layered security approach, defense in depth. You cannot just rely on your next generation firewall to provide all sort of security. No, there are other options available, like I mentioned, as part of this platform that you must leverage to increase the security posture of your enterprise deployment, right? And yeah, and you will see the results very soon if you implement and follow these guiding principles, these best practices. You will achieve fast and better return on your investment. And if you don't believe in that, you can talk to us again. We have a team dedicated to talk about, showcasing this model to your CFOs, your CTOs, or your CEOs. So we can actually prove you, and we can also provide you the data that we have collected from other enterprises. So come talk to us. We can actually show you how to actually realize it, right? Yeah. So with that, what I want you to live with is basically some action items. The first thing is about education and learning. Obviously, you guys are the practitioners, the designers, and the architects. It's very important for you to understand how the cloud networking works, how it's implemented, and how it's being designed, right? So for that, we have created a training program called ACE, right? You can go to aviatrix.com/ACE and you can take the training there. And I believe we are running a promo where, yeah, so this is the ACE program where we are running the promo where you can take the ACE associate course for free if you use this code. And then if you want, you can also join the instructor-led training, which is about 4 or 6 hours long, which actually instructor-led, obviously, and then it also has a lab, so you can actually touch and feel this platform, right? Instead of just listening to those videos, you can touch and feel, right? And then you can obviously talk to us. We have our email here, info@aviatrix.com. A lot of resources available. I have my own YouTube channel where you can come and look at different design options and different deployment I have done for a number of different customers. Yeah, like I said, you have the VM series deployment options. You can see it in action in GCP, in AWS, in Azure. So a lot of training and education available for you guys. Yeah, with that, I would like to thanks again, and yeah, see you next time. Let's move on to the QA section now.
Hey, Shazad, Ricardo here.
Hey, Ricardo.
I have a question from the Q&A panel. Can you show us the Terraform integration?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. So Terraform integration is very easy to showcase. So the first thing is if you look at this controller, you can look at this option, which is called export to Terraform. So whatever you're building as part of this deployment is done and captured in Terraform. So you can download, first of all, anything that you build through this controller, right? Your firewall network, FireNet, which is for the next generation firewall insertion, If you have peering, you have on-prem connection and whatnot, right? So that's number one. Number two, if you want to see the integration, the best place is to look at the HashiCorp website, right? So if you go search Terraform Aviatrix, you will see the Aviatrix provider, and you can see the usage example. And you can also see on the left-hand side all the different options to automate your network or your cloud security using the Terraform. So in the security space, for example, you can see the firewall policy, egress FQDN, we talked about a lot of things. So yeah, so I would say just search it up and you will find us. We are the official Terraform provider. And then, yeah, you can start using it right away. And then Ricardo and other people, they have also created their own Terraform GitHub repositories. You can also leverage that to begin with. So a lot of information in that space.
Great. Thanks, Shazad.
No worries.
So another question I have here is regarding geo-blocking. Can you use geo-blocking plus the other secure features you mentioned?
Yeah, very good question. So yes, the answer is absolutely. And that is exactly the idea. That is called layered security model or defense in depth. So absolutely, you would use the geo-blocking or geofencing feature as one of the mechanisms to improve the security posture, but then you also have all those options. You have the network segmentation, micro segmentation, next generation firewall service insertion, egress FQDN. One thing I did not mention is that when you're building this network through Aviatrix, it's all encrypted by default. So that's another security mechanism that we have as part of the platform, right? Which is again a cost saving because it's there, it's automatically there. It's especially important when you're connecting your cloud to the on-premise resources because that link might not be encrypted. For example, Direct Connect or Express Route by default, they're not encrypted. But when you use our network or our platform, we will automatically encrypt those links for you. Yeah, so the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, I have another one is regarding costs. Can you comment on the pricing model?
Yeah, exactly. So the pricing model is very simple and straightforward, right? So the whole topic that we discussed today is to remove the complexity, how to simplify your cloud security so that you can save the cost. So we follow the same mentality, same methodology when it comes to licensing. So licensing is very simple. If you go to AWS or any marketplace, you will see that. But I'll just give you a high level idea is that it's based on the number of VPCs, right? So you have a VPC, there is a cost for licensing cost for that VPC. If you have 10 VPC, multiply by that cost. This is how simple it is. And the beauty is that all these features that we spoke about, they're part of the same licensing umbrella. So yeah, so that's how we provide the licensing, simplify the licensing for our own platform as well.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions.
Cool. All right. With that, thanks again. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ricardo, and everyone else for jumping in and helping with the Q&A.
Okay, thank you.